Hello and welcome to Chapter 5X of Fire Emblem The Last Promise 0% Growth's LTC. This chapter is a 12-turn defend map, but it is completed in 13 turns because the way that FE7 handles defend maps in turn counts. On turn 1, Shuuda takes the talisman that we got last map and uses it. He takes it from Kevin. Kevin equips an Iron Lance for the enemy phase to set up for some AI manipulation. These moves are very particularly planned out. Specifically because if I plan them out, because they burn a specific amount of RNs, that just makes the setup for this chapter easier. I've had to re-record this chapter multiple times, input-wise, and you'll see some remnants from that, but midway through the chapter I adopted an improvised strategy, just to make it so that there was a 0% chance of death for units that normally had a slight chance of death in the last couple of turns, just to make my life easier. But I was able to implement some of the old strategies. This map is going to be quite boring, and I'm warning you, it's going to be quite long. If you just want to know the important things, Shuuda gets to level 7, Arthur gets to level 5 and has a lot of experience to level 6, Storm gets to level 5 as well, I get that killing edge, I get a killer lance, and Tamiko gets some more healing experience. If you're not interested in the rest of the strategy, you can click off now. To explain what's happening, the rest of it, Sean stays on that fort because his combat is so terrible in this chapter that he's just used to burn RNs on a later turn. I turn on animations right here because Shuuda needs to not get crit by this Cavalier, but he does need to get hit. I just wanted to show you what the crit rate would be like instead of the small, instead of the patch making the battle output small. Shuuda has a relatively high chance of death throughout this entire chapter. He has to dodge that javelin, and on this turn he has to dodge it again, although now it has like an 18% hit chance on him. He uses the Lance Reaver to kill the Cavalier that he doubled with an Iron Sword last time. Kevin had an Iron Lance equipped in the first enemy phase to make it so that the Cavalier that attacked him with a javelin then attacked Shuuda instead of attacking Corbin. On turn 2, Corbin gets the Emblem Lance back from Inanna and trades her a javelin which she'll trade to someone else later. Arthur chips a Cavalier and Corbin gets the kill. I could have done it in the alternate order, but Corbin needs Lance experience a tiny bit. This is when things start getting a little bit dangerous. Kevin gets down to 1 HP this enemy phase, and so does Corbin. Both of them need to dodge one attack. In fact, the reason Kevin equips the Iron Lance on the first turn, and the reason I burn the particular amount of RNs, is because if I don't, then Kevin gets killed because the Javelin guy deals 1 damage to him at base. On turn 2, Kevin equips a Javelin and uses an Elixir to heal up, not turn 2, turn 4. And, Arthur chips down his Cavalier. Corbin retreats. Gets healed. And then Inanna burns it around. There are a lot of RN burning. There is a lot of RN burning in this chapter. However, it's needed to make this chapter reliable, as this is an all-guidance run. You can end this chapter earlier than 12 turns, although I don't believe it's possible in 0% growths, because you have to kill a boss with really high stats, and you have to bypass those 3 generals up there. None of which I don't believe I can deal damage to any of them. Oh yeah, we got a new unit this chapter, Storm. Storm joins with a personal weapon called Stormbringer that grants him +2 speed, however it weighs him down when he's unpromoted by 1, so he only gets a 1+1 speed. However, with it, he doubles a lot of the Cavaliers in this chapter. He also joins with a short bow and killer bow. He gets a lot of crits. It's very nice that he joins with the killer bow, because he's going to be using it a lot. I burns RNs this turn so that, not for the Storm kill, because the RN string would have lined up for the Storm killing with the killer bow anyway. But instead, it's that Siegfried would one round with the monk with the shaman with the javelin because he would have had mediocre hit at best. Well, he had mediocre hit. He would have missed one of the attacks. A lot of these RM burns are going to look kind of dubious, and so are some of the later enemy phases. Shuuda uses the talisman in this chapter, not because it helps him out in this chapter, although it technically does, because it allows more AI manipulation because he can get to lower HP safer. But because it allows him to take more magical hits in the future. Storm gets another killer bow crit after Inanna burns another RM, and Kevin retreats a little to let Shuuda kill another Cavalier with the Lance River. Shuuda is also getting a lot of kills on this map, specifically with the Lance River. That's his second kill. Inanna burns 5 RNs like this. I actually don't know if it's 5, but it's so that she hits both of these slim lance hits and dodges dodges the enemy attack. I could have burnt, because this makes the Shaman have some very funky heal AI. A lot of enemies in the map have very funky heal AI. They heal when they're at like 75% HP or lower. Shaman burns another RN, and Tamiko heals Kevin. Siegfried kills that Shaman with a new thong, just that Shuuda has a higher chance of survival on this enemy phase. Monk goes back and heals himself, but that doesn't really matter. Storm gets hurt, but again, that doesn't really matter. That monk dies, and we get his elixir with 2 uses left, I believe. Siegfried has to have the new thong equipped for enemy AI manipulation, otherwise they would go for Inanna instead, and they would kill her. However, but because he's at lower HP than what they perceive him at, what they see Inanna as percentage-wise, he gets attacked instead. He needs to dodge one of those 3 attacks. That was why Sean burnt the RN. Now, what's interesting about this map is that these next 2 actions, Storm getting that killer bow crit and Arthur killing the cav that Shuuda just weakened, could happen in either order. Both of them result in Storm getting the crit. Arthur levels up to, I believe, level 4 or level 3, yeah. The main reason I'm actually doing this map, normally I would be doing it for boots from the boss, but I'm not. And because this is 0%, I'm just doing this to gain extra experience, and because I said this would be an all-guidance run. Inanna stays on that tile for a lot of the map. She rescues Storm down so that he can be healed for a later enemy phase. Also so that Tamiko can get some more staff experience. In this enemy phase, Shuuda has a pretty high chance of death because those shamans all have pretty high hit rates against him. However, it's only 2 that attack him, because that one left realizes he would be one-rounded and attacks Arthur instead. Which helps keep Shuuda alive. Shuuda faces a very high chance of death throughout this entire map. I don't know how to calculate it, and I don't want to calculate it. If you want to, you can. Although it would not be fun. Shuuda and Arthur team up to kill that Cavalier, and you can really see that my units have started falling off combat-wise, other than Shuuda, because everyone else needs help. Inanna trades the javelin over to Siegfried because that 5-use javelin will come in handy later on. And having the 16 use means that he doesn't lower the uses on that javelin and risk breaking it, even though that would help with the enemy phase survivability. I need the 5-use javelin later on. This is where the talisman does help Shuuda out. He'd be at lower HP if any of these hit, meaning that he could survive he could survive at 1 HP if either of the last 2 shamans that attacked him hit him. He'd be able to survive at 1 HP. That was why he used the talisman, but then it turns out that he dodged the ones that would have killed him without it. Shuuda max moves down, and then Arthur, I thought he moved down, but that was an older strategy. Instead, he stays in places and uses a vulnerable area. Siegfried moved one down and right to get into the other forest, and to open up a path for other enemies to attack Arthur. Because remember, I'm trying to get light rank and experience onto Arthur, more than I care about lance rank on Siegfried. I'll turn on animations a couple times when they don't seem to be necessary. It's because in older strategies, that was when I needed to get a critical hit. There aren't any actual necessary... Well, there are a couple necessary critical hits for the strategy to work. However, they are with Storm and the Killer Bow, and not Arthur and Lightning, so they all have a fairly high chance of going off. Because he has, like, roughly 33 crit with Killer Bow at base. There is another low percent crit that happens on the very last turn of the map. However, it is not necessary, and you will see why on the turn that it happens. Arthur moves down and uses his elixir. This pretty much guarantees his survival so long as he dodges one of the Cavaliers. Shuuda uses a vulnerary just in case he gets hit, because the last 3 times I tried to record on the map, he got hit on this turn even though he should not have, meaning that I accidentally burnt 1 or 2 RNs that I didn't mean to. Arthur has a basically 0 chance of death during this enemy phase because a lot of the enemies that attack him don't have very good accuracy against him. Some cavaliers on this map are carrying steel lances, while some have javelins and steel swords. Sorry about that, I got briefly interrupted. Arthur attacks that shaman just to weaken him, so that he'll retreat and use an vulnerary just to make his enemy face survivability slightly higher. By the way, Shuuda healing up also helps with the shenanigans because they will attack Arthur instead of attacking Shuuda. Usually, this guy has an Nosferatu tome, and he was the one who killed Shuuda in my previous attempts. Some of these shamans are weighed down by their flex tomes enough to the point where Arthur can double them. Not this one. I believe that top left one there, in that square, is weighed down enough. This turn is where things start getting a little bit funky. On turn 11. By the way, that Killer Lens cannot be used by any of my units except Siegfried. However, the Killing Edge can be used by Sean, Siegfried, and Shuuda. Shuuda will be the one using it next map. I should have turned on animations there so you can see him critting, but hey, it does not matter. Originally that would have been a critical hit, however because I accidentally burnt some RNs, that wasn't, I had to improvise a little bit. This last turn is just improv. This enemy phase I should have turned on animations when enemies attacked Storm, because I knew what would happen because I saw the RNs did line up for this, in the previous clears, and I should have just turned them on just in case. Because this enemy phase is very cool to see. After all the enemies retreat and heal. I could have had Shuuda go up and one round the Shaman with Nosferatu on the last turn, and that with Lancer that would have made his chance of death basically 0, but I did not think I was warranted. Storm crits this guy. And I turned on animations here. He does not crit this guy. In the original strat, he did. He crit both the shaman and that guy. However, it does not really matter. It doesn't change a thing. It just means he gets slightly less bow experience. Bow experience is what I care about on Storm, because it's very unlikely I'm promoting him, and if I am, it's not for his stats, or for a weapon rank boost, it's literally just for, the ability to use, the ability to carry a heavier unit later in the game. Arthur gets the elixir that Monk had, and, Corbin drops Storm, so that Siegfried is the only unit in those Cavaliers and Shaman's ranges, and Tamiko gets one last heal. And then I check the status after I kill the Shaman, just to show that this is the last promise 0% crits, Chapter 5X, completed in 12 turns. And I'll let this one enemy phase play out, and then after that, have a nice day, and thank you for watching. That crit is completely unnecessary, by the way. He does not need to hit or crit that as Cavalier. Oh yeah, of things to note, there is an arena up on this map that I think a Growth's Run could use to train Inanna. However, it is completely useless for me, and I would get swarmed if I tried to make it up there. The Killer Lens can only be used by Siegfried. Thank you, and have a nice day.